Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And we've seen a lot of tremors continue to play out in the emerging markets. We see a lot of problems with, every fiat currency throughout history has fallen. Eventually, it always has, always will, going back to 1024 AD in China. And this most recent story is out of Sri Lanka, as investing.com says. Sri Lankan Rupee hits record low for fourth straight day. And as the article goes into, the Sri Lankan Rupee touched a fresh low of 165.1 per dollar on Monday, due to higher dollar demand from importers and banks to facilitate foreign bond outflows amid exporters who were reluctant to sell the U.S. currency, market sources said. Exporters expect the rupee to be under pressure due to continued importer dollar demand and less exporter dollar sales. Emerging market currencies were mostly weaker after a strong run last week following the Turkish central bank's decision to sharply raise interest rates to shore up confidence in the lira. Sri Lankan Rupee touched a fresh low of 165.1 per dollar, Reuters data showed, surpassing its previous low of 163.6 hit in the previous session. It ended at 165/30 per dollar, weaker from Friday's close of 163.6/70. The sources said an illiquid market for dollars, dollar buying by foreign banks to facilitate bond outflows, and importer demand weighed on the currency. Sri Lanka's finance ministry would not intervene in exchange rate management, Junior Finance Minister Aaron Wickramaratne said on Thursday at an economic forum, adding that the central bank would intervene as and when necessary to curb excess volatility in the exchange rate and also punish speculators. The country's central bank cut the net open positions of the banks on September 6 to increase dollar liquidity, forcing commercial banks to sell dollars. Since last week, currency dealers have been refusing to speak to the media, citing instructions from the central bank. However, central bank governor Indrajit Kumaraswamy said late on Tuesday that he was unaware of such a move. So, maybe I'm not great at saying their names. That's the issue of the loss in translation kind of thing. But anyway, I want to kind of go into this a bit because we haven't really talked about Sri Lanka before. I don't know much about the country. I love their food, but with that said, it all comes down to the very principles of sound money, sound economics, basic economics, really, that tell you after all this history of 1,000 years, seeing every fiat currency crash and seeing these massive derivatives bubbles, etc., we know that this always ends in crisis, and why would now be any different than before? So John, can you go into what do you think is happening? He's typing on the computer right now. Okay, can you go into what do you think is happening in Sri Lanka? Because this doesn't take a genius to see that we're seeing them follow the same kind of path that we've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of currencies follow before.
No, of course. Let me just go into a couple of charts here, Josh, so we could get a grasp of where the currency is at, from where it came from. If you take a look at since 2004, the Sri Lankan Rupee was at about 100 in exchange rate, and now is at 166. And if you look at, I calculated that's about 39.75% loss over 14 years, which is a substantial amount of loss in purchasing power, of course, in your currency. And then we'll take a look at M0. I found that very interesting. If you go and look at the historical scale, you got that we were talking about the whole hockey stick moment. Well, look at this hockey stick here. It's really developing very fast. The money supply is, constantly getting added to in Sri Lanka.
Wait a second. They're adding to the money supply and they're wondering why it's devaluing rapidly? Who would have thought?
Yeah, and of course, we have mass amounts of debt in the banking system. And if you look at the central bank of Sri Lanka's balance sheet, you also see that they've been adding mass amounts of assets to their balance sheet. And if you take a look at the last couple of this year, you could see some huge swings where they're trying to buy and sell assets in order to try to balance out the economy between, bad loans that we're starting to see. Because what is happening in all the emerging markets right now is that they have a lot of US dollar denominated debt. And then, of course, the US dollar got super strong strong there is compared to the other currencies, and then of course that debt is becoming very hard to pay for the local economies. Like you got the RON, the peso, Venezuela, like all these economies are going bust basically because they cannot pay their debt in other currencies because they borrowed too much money. Like they didn't do like China did, of course, where they just issued their own current debt in their own currency instead of letting the risk of issuing money in another currency. So they had like zero control, the central bankers, on the actual debt valuation.
Yeah, well, the floodwaters are rising for the small island nation, and I mean, they're going to be taken out like Mauritania was taken out thousands of years ago. I mean, this is a huge issue because we have a lot of people that don't understand this issue, and because they don't understand this issue, they don't understand that they're losing the value of their currency at a rapid rate, and they don't realize that they're becoming more and more poor. They stick currency under their mattresses thinking they're saving up, but every day that currency is worth less and less. The interest rate in Sri Lanka was at 7.25, I think, last. And I mean, they are trying to centralize it into prosperity like every fiat currency around the world. But the problem with that is that the more they prop it up, the worse it's going to get. And they keep printing and printing. But value comes, subjective value comes from scarcity, application use, and demand. And that needs to be understood. You can't have value when you print vast sums of this paper. These IOU notes is nonsense. And then, you pump these banks full of a bunch of IOU notes, and there's just massive amounts of debt, and then people fall into debt servitude. It has always happened. So yeah, we are repetitive here at WAM. We talk about this with different countries around the world, and it keeps happening to different countries around the world because there is no way to escape this system on this planet other than through you as an individual preserving your wealth and looking for ways to protect your purchasing power with things outside of the fiat system, because every country in the world has a central bank. Every single one. And I think it's about time that people understand that they should look to things like gold and silver, look at things like cryptocurrencies that have sound fundamental value and that are actually truly decentralized and have some kind of product that you can actually utilize and put forward to change and revolutionize the world around you. You need to decentralize things. You need to rule yourself. You need to be independent and stop being so dependent on these massive organized crime rackets called governments and banks. So John, what do you got there?
Well, I was looking at the Civil War, of course, that happened, ever since July 23rd in 1983, between, of course, the Tamil Tigers and the government. And what happened there, of course, is, littered with history, like forth and back, and they're almost like they said it would defeat it in 2009, but it continued pressure in between, like this kind of Hegelian dialectic that they have there, pitting two people against each other in order to control them. It's very similar to what has been done in other countries. And I found something other interesting about Sri Lanka here, Josh, that might be very interesting. See the growth in the economy. The economy has grown quite substantially. And I wonder why it's been growing so much since 2008, Josh. Well, let's take a look at their income tax. It's suddenly dropped from 35 down to 15. And I'm just surprised that the economy actually grew so fast in Sri Lanka because they cut, income tax. According to, people that run the U.S. debt clock and others, they say that, we need more taxes in order to get the government to survive. But interestingly enough, here they actually cut substantial amount of taxes, 20% that is, on everybody on an average. Well, isn't that surprising that the economy was booming from now till then? But then, of course, the problem is you shove in a whole bunch of debt too into people because they feel more wealthier and they get into and buy housing and so on. So it is a problem where you have the banking system on the other side that is corrupted and money. So you're not getting the full benefit that you could have if you didn't have the fractional reserve banking system, Josh.
Yeah, well, taxation is theft. Government is organized crime. So are banks. So are central banks. They all benefit greatly from your debt, folks. If they shove you down a bottomless pit of debt, you are forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, pushing you into perfect servitude right where they want you. Folks, break free from that. Don't fall for that. Don't look to these massive orders to help you and save you and take care of you, because the best person to take care of you is you yourself. Take care of yourself. Understand these issues. Understand your money, or else your money will control you, and you do not want these money masters taking control over you more than they already have. I think it all comes down to self-sustainability and, food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. And like I said before, and in my opinion, not investment advice, because of course gold and silver aren't investment. It's, if anything, it's wealth insurance. But gold and silver, and like I said, cryptocurrencies that have sound fundamental value. As we wrap this up, it looks like John is finding us more to report on here as we're trying to wrap it up. What's going on?
Well, of course, they're not, out of the hairs of the IMF over there in Sri Lanka. And I just wanted to look it up because it came to my mind, of course. Me and Josh, like what not many people might know about me and Josh, when we sit doing these videos, we actually pull up a lot of data as, our ideas come.
These aren't scripted at all, as you could probably tell.
Yeah, and we just get new ideas. And of course, it popped into my mind, what is IMF doing over there? What have we been up to? And of course, on June 14th, 2016, of course, the IMF, after the long civil war that, were destroying the country, the IMF came in and took advantage of the government and everybody in shambles over there, and of course provided a $2.6 billion loan to the island nation. And of course, the IMF is in there again, Josh, again. They're in there, giving these loans, they're, predatory lenders, like a loan shark going after the poorest people like the payday lenders do. Like it's interest rate apartheid, stealing from these poor nations, all their wealth that they had within their country and giving it to the corrupt political elite and the banksters.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what the UN, the IMF, these fraudsters do to everyone. It's what China's doing to everyone. It's what NATO and the United States government has done with everyone. The IMF has been doing it forever. They basically just try and own countries after lending them massive amounts of money. So there's no surprise there, but it's always interesting to hear how they've got their octopus tentacles in absolutely everything on the planet. Anyway, so we're going to wrap it up here because we will continue to look at this issue. We will keep you up to date. We hope people in Sri Lanka are watching. Make sure to comment below if you are and let us know what you think is happening and what you've experienced. But anyway, I think it's important that we always understand that all fiat currencies revert to their true value of zero eventually, and they always have, like I said, going back to 1024 AD in China.
Yeah, one last thing. I think the Sri Lankans has some of the best names in the world, Josh. Their names are beyond being able to spell them. They're really crazy and fun at the same time. I used to work with a guy. His name was Ravi Balan Gnanan Sambantam. So I just wanted to give you kudos for amazing names over there in Sri Lanka, guys.
Yeah, well, they're not like so many African names with clicks in them. I always thought that was kind of cool. But anyway, I love it when you have an exclamation mark in the middle of your name. Anyway, so there's always lots to report on here, Wham. Stay tuned for more. This is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth,
be the change.
Like what you see here, OM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized by YouTube as they bring in the ADL to flag all of our content as hate speech. Also check our Bitcoin address in the description as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out at Steemit at Josh Sigurdson, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency, Steem that is. So don't forget to check us out there and find us at Anarchapulco 2019. I know it's early, but this is such an exciting event coming up with Ron Paul, Judge Napolitano, David Icke, Larkin Rose, Jeff Berwick, all the usual characters, and it's going to be amazing. So we hope to see you there. Make sure to check the link for Anarchapulco below and use promo code WHAM to save as much as 15% on your tickets. We hope to see you there. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.